Will Wallace, thank you for joining the Making Reagan podcast.
Thank you for having me, Mark.
It's great to be here with you. Have you here at the world headquarters of the Making Reagan podcast in an RV off the film's location.
Yes, indeed.
What a ton of fun it's been to have you here playing Ed Meese, Reagan's probably one of his closest confidants and closest aides.
Indeed. Yes.
And it's great to have you. We worked together many years ago, and somehow we've kept our friendship going.
How long ago was that,
together.
Mark?
Well, we did a movie 10 years ago called Doonby.
Was that 10 years, or was that... Okay.
In which you played a murderer, basically.
Yes.
Every time I see you, I needle you about that. But no, it's so great to have you. And having spent quite a bit of time with the real Ed Meese, it's just been great to see you really inhabit that character. And of course, we had a chance to talk to him. But I'd love to just hear your process of how you came to this role and how you took it upon yourself.
Well, I thank you for setting up for first off, thank you for the role, the offer, and I just was pleased. I think just obviously studying up on Mr. Meese and reading up as much as I could, watching any videos and interviews that we'd seen. But then when I asked you, would it be okay? I thought I might actually be able to find a way to get in touch with Mr. Meese through, and I thought, would you be okay if I reached out to him? And you said, oh, well, we can set that up. It'll be ready. I said,
yeah,
I just talked to him today. You
yeah.
said, yeah, we'll do it right away. And I thought, oh, wow. So I immediately started trying to prep my questions for that. And I thought it was wonderful of Mr. Meese to spend an hour with us on a Zoom session and just answer questions. But he was just insightful. And had much to offer in the ways, but it's interesting, you were on that Zoom with us. He's tactful in all of his answers.
Mm-hmm,
so
right.
You might have noticed that some of my questions almost seem to be to appear to be a redundancy of sort, but I was trying to get a little deeper into his internal thoughts about certain individuals.
You were kind of asking about some rivalries. And he didn't want to go there.
He didn't, and he was, but he was informative. But I almost feel like we had to read into the subtext of his answers. Did you feel like that as well?
Yeah, he's a real gentleman, and he's not going to criticize people that he worked with. But yeah, I think you read between the lines, and there were some ideological differences. And just organizational differences. The old joke, and I say this as Ed's friend and admirer, the old joke was that he could lose something in his own briefcase. I think people would say things like that. But, we all have our strengths and weaknesses, and he's an idea man. And so I think maybe that was, part of his strength. But just one quick thought on Ed and introducing you. I've never seen anybody who is so committed to their belief systems in the sense that he's 87 years old, I believe. And he pops up at these conferences with two canes. He's like walking around with two canes. He's skiing, but he's not skiing. And he's so determined to continue advancing his beliefs. He's obviously very conservative and into the legal side of things. Yeah. And I just thought, as I met a lot of Reagan's aides, a lot of them were just so happy to be retired. Judge Clark said, I just wanted to get back to the ranch, And here's Ed Meese. And so here's the kind of the what do you call the apex of this. I call him up one day because I was looking for some advice or something about something Reagan related. And he said, oh, I'm at the hospital. I just had a stroke. And I said, Ed, we can talk later. Don't, let me just hang up. He goes, no, let's talk. He goes, I just half my side is not working, but the other half is fine. So keep talking. I'm like, what in the world? Wow. This guy is devoted. He doesn't have time to have a stroke even.
Exactly. Wow.
And so anyway, so I was glad that you guys got to meet. But I just kind of watching you this week and these last couple weeks as you played the role, it feels like you kind of settled in, from my perspective, to the role. What was it like for you, and what was your process?
Well, you'd actually given me some additional insight, which I appreciated on set, and it was. You've known Ed on a personal level for some time now. And
10 years. Yeah.
Wow. so it's interesting in trying to develop a character like that from an outside perspective. Just the more you can narrow that distance, I think the better. The more you can, and I think that was very helpful on that end. And we talked a bit about reading the subtext, and we won't share exactly one, but I do want to say that Ed said, well, this is something I wouldn't want repeated, so we won't repeat it. But it was interesting when he said it. I thought, wow, that in no way would be offensive to anybody. But I think to him, do you know what I'm talking about? And
yeah.
I just thought it was so gracious and eloquent the way he'd put it. I don't think anyone would think that was a negative.
Right.
So
right.
I just found that interesting.
Yeah. I think you have you already have some of the same characteristics that he has, I think, but you also seem to draw upon his character as well. What were you, as you were with Reagan, Dennis Quaid in these scenes, what were you thinking? Like, how was your... Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what your process was of how you got to the character.
Really just trying to take what Ed had shared with me. If you remember during our Zoom conference, I'd really gone through all the different events that are portrayed in the movie, be it, and taking us through the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and those specific events. Went through those specific events and the individuals that he's communicating with specifically in the movie, and tried to delve into his process and particularly his mindset, the evolution of his mindset over a 3-decade span, and I think that kind of helped. So when we were in those specific moments and the individuals I was communicating with or responding to, I was hoping to process Mr. Meese's feelings in those moments, his sentiments.
So you are not only an actor, you're a writer, you're a producer, you've been in a lot of films.
Well, director, not necessarily a writer, but
that's right. I was saying director, producer, actor. Yeah. Which of those three you've focused more on your producing and directing, I would say, than your acting recently. But yes. Which do you enjoy, and what do you like out of all those? And what's it like? How are the differences like?
Well, I also have an acting school, so I coach a number of people that are on a variety of TV shows and movies, and so I think I for some time was able to kind of satisfy that acting crave through that, and really devoted more of my focus to producing and directing. Directing is the thing that I enjoy the most, but it's probably the job I'm least likely to accept, just because it really needs to be in your heart. It's something you're living and breathing for years, and as a producer, I've actually had multiple pictures happening at the same time, and you're able to sleep at night more, I think. But I do have to say that jumping back in, I did The Great Alaskan Race right before this, and we actually I produced it as well. But Brian wanted me to play Gunner in the film, and it was I just realized how much I do enjoy acting. It was almost as if there was a revival of sorts within somewhere deep within me, and so when you guys gave me the offer to play this role, I was actually very excited, and it's just been a wonderful experience. It really has. It's a talented team, very enthusiastic, dealing with some real struggles with COVID, and just the situations but this team's managed everything very professionally, and
or faked it.
Or faked it.
It could be either one.
Well, just being a cast member, I'm not seeing what's happening behind the scenes, but you guys have covered it beautifully. I just thought, wow, what an impressive group, and very well managed.
It's very tough to make a movie in the time of COVID. I hope you don't have to do it as a producer or director, but certainly for us and for Sean directing, it's not we had a small COVID. We had a couple of cases, I think, on the set, right? And so, but you've been on a lot of sets in your lifetime. You also work closely with your stepfather, Terrence Malick, to those of you who are film buffs. And what is that process? You guys, I mean, what is that like, by the way, to work with your stepfather, who married your mother? Yeah, what is that like, that dynamic?
Well, the dynamics changed. The first time I met Terry was I was able to get in. I just started acting. Had been acting for.
Now, you met previous to your mother getting married to him, correct?
Yes,
Nice.
yes. I was cast in The Thin Red Line, and was able to work with him and get to know him through that process, and found him fascinating, amiable, and but reserved, quiet, and obviously over the years, he had coincidentally gone to St. Stephen's in Austin with my mother.
So he was like a family friend.
No, I actually had never met him, but he had my parents had split up, and it was a very difficult time for my mother. She didn't expect that to happen. So Terry works very, very slowly, and during that process, they had that 7th grade connection, and were able to kind of reconnect, and he was able to help her, I think, through a difficult time. So
That's very sweet.
yes, and so I was always he I think was a real blessing coming into my mother's life. And so Terry and I have done I think 4 pictures together, and interestingly enough, he's somebody that I think, and I respect his decision, but he's very anti-nepotism. Yeah. And so I think as our relationship developed as friends, our working relationship probably diminished. So my roles became smaller. And
because he's aware and conscious, and not wanting to.
And he actually spoke to me about that. He just said, "I'm not. I think my guess. I don't know this. I never, but I believe that probably somewhere in his life he felt like he'd maybe been treated unfairly with respect to a case of nepotism, or maybe he had witnessed it. I don't know this. This is all speculation, but." Right. But I'm very fond of our friendship. I think he's a wonderful stepfather, and he's a very good companion and partner to my mother. He loves her very much, and so it's a real blessing having him in our life. But at this point, I think, the last picture I did with him, I think I didn't even make the final cut. So,
well, to show you how odd Hollywood is, he and I, quote unquote, produced a movie together. Yet we've never met. Isn't that classic Hollywood?
And you're both of Syrian descent. The 3 Syrians in Hollywood.
Co-executive producers on a movie called a movie that I did with Martin Sheen. A beautiful picture.
The Vessel.
The Vessel, yeah. Done in English and Spanish simultaneously. The first movie in history that I know of at the time. The Hollywood Reporter said it was the first time in history that a film was simultaneously done in English and Spanish.
Isn't that something?
But anyway, yeah. So your names get attached to things, and but someday we'll meet. But anyway, so you have a large family, by the way, which I have been accused of that as well. You have 4 boys.
4 boys, but small in comparison to your group.
In Hollywood, and you're married to the same woman.
Yes.
For how many years?
Well, we've been married coming on 14 years.
So you have a couple of strikes against you in terms of being very odd in Hollywood. You're married to the same woman.
Yes.
And you have 4 children.
4 children, and I'm married literally to my best friend.
Right. That's pretty weird.
Yes.
Just so you know. What else? Is there anything else that we should know about you that's a little bit strange in Hollywood?
I don't know. We do. I grew up in Texas, so I probably bring a lot of that to our lifestyle. I mean, we have, a little land in the backyard. We, a barbecue grill. We'll have margaritas and fajitas and play country music, and so there's I still have the Texas roots, and my kids are we'll be playing we may be playing Charlie Pride, we may be playing the Carpenters on the radio, some of the music that I listened to growing up. And so I think they probably get some of that influence. And when we do travel home, they seem to gravitate towards that lifestyle. And my wife's she's from Northern California, Marin County. And she always loves that part of our life. So I think it's an interesting mix, a healthy mix.
And talk about your acting school.
It's the Will Wallace Acting Company, and we been in on Burbank on Hollywood Way, right outside Warner Brothers. There's a building, Magnolia and Hollywood Way, that where we've had a school for many years, and we've been blessed with wonderful students, Emmy winners, series regulars, people in lots of studio pictures you may have seen. And
so, how does somebody who wants to join? How do they join, and what's the process?
Oh, well, we actually we don't advertise, so we do have a website at wallaceacting.com that provides basic information, and we have a bunch of testimonials from many students from different countries, even in different languages, some of them. But it's always been a word of mouth, and we've somewhat selective in that we do look for students who have a certain work ethic and a positive attitude. That, and so I think there is a real there's a certain respect that I think a lot of our actors have and give towards just individuals in general, anyone, and I think that's in a somewhat difficult industry. I think that's a helpful learning environment. And so,
what made you want to start an acting school?
It's interesting. Gosh, there was a company many years ago, decades ago, or I think we're 25 years ago, that had asked me to come, and I think I'd maybe just started directing by then. I'd had credits in studio films and TV shows as an actor, and they asked if I would come teach a class, and fortunately the classes were very popular right from the start, and feedback was good, and it was so I was actually able to start an acting school with a full class day one. It was nice. Wow. So it's kind of been, and then we just kind of expanded from there.
So people come out from Ohio and Kansas, and they hear about, or they just show up, or do you have people in Hollywood who are already here who want to polish their skills, or what are the students like?
Normally just be referrals. I just got a text from C. Thomas Howell, from Tommy Howell, who we met on this set. He's playing Cap Weinberger, and he just asked if we'd take on his nephew, an actor.
That's great.
And it's that type of thing.
So it's a kind of a step into Hollywood for people that may not know what to do or how to break in. Would you say that's what it is?
I think so. Yeah, my wife's a casting director, so we certainly do provide opportunities. She's cast, she cast Trafficked for me with Ashley Judd and Ann Archer, and one that I directed. She cast Red Wing, that one I directed and produced with Bill Paxton and Francis Fisher, Luke Perry. But she's also done a sea of TV, Lifetime types, Christmas Harmony, those types of movies. So it's a wide range, and those are oftentimes, some of those TV movies are it's a good way for kids to really kind of get their foot in the door and get some footage that's actually airing on a network, and actually and it helps build up their reel, which can then hopefully give them the opportunity to get a strong agent, or an agent who can get them in some doors to potentially get more movies or bigger projects.
And what is is there a Wallace method? What is your method of acting?
I get asked that a lot, and a lot of the people that have come my way, and it's funny, I get students now who have studied at some of the very well-known coaches, and they have big recognizable credits, and they felt like, and they may have plateaued in certain places. They just need to kind of work a different muscle. And I to answer your question, I don't think of it. It's not any sort of interpretation of Stanislavski. We have graduates that have come from Meisner, Adler, Strasberg, some that have studied all. It's. I think that what we try to do is we try to. Stanislavski was brilliant, no doubt, but we're not trying to interpret what he meant. I think that styles of acting have changed. There's so many different media platforms now, and so you need to your acting style. You need to be ready to change and adapt depending upon the pacing of a specific show, depending upon what that network may be looking
Right.
for. There's all kinds of things. So I think generally what we try to do is we try to always stretch out our instincts. We work on improv skills. We work on audition technique. But generally, we try to do character work and scene study work that will hopefully, during the audition process, separate you from the masses. Something that will be memorable. Something where not only if you get cast, they will hopefully want to expand your role rather than you potentially being on the cutting room floor.
Well, I'm sure we have some film buffs. So just to return back to quickly to Terrence Malick, what did you learn from him as a filmmaker? Because obviously he is a very I wouldn't say secretive, but he's doesn't give a lot of interviews and things. But
Yeah.
what have you learned from him by watching him as a director?
It's interesting because Terry's so modest that I don't feel like he's ever specifically given me any advice, but just in watching him.
Watching him.
Yeah, he's somebody who I think provides himself with a great deal of options. I think these facts are correct, but I could be wrong. But my understanding of During the Thin Red Line was he shot 1.5 million feet of film, which is the equivalent of anywhere from 15 to 30 movies, depending on shooting ratios. And so I think that he has he gives himself, if he's painting a painting, he's giving himself a great deal of supplies and
why is that? Why do you think?
I think that he's and again, this is speculation, but I think he likes to create his art after he has all the pieces, so to speak. And that's just my take on it. So,
And has it changed the way you direct? How has it impacted you as a director?
I think I definitely do. Terry's a big fan of Steadicam, and I am as well. So I remember the late Bill Paxton when we did Red Wing. Interestingly enough, it had complimented me on my on the shots, specifically the blocking and the detail and the Steadicam work, and leaving shots in strong oneers that work, and that's probably something that I picked up from Terry. And interestingly enough, when I directed my first picture, a Dostoevsky piece set in Russia in 1860, called A Christmas Tree and a Wedding, I asked John Toll, who was the DP for The Thin Red Line, the cinematographer. He shot Braveheart,
Right.
and I asked him, "Do you have any, for a first-time director? Do you have any insight you'd like to share?" And he said, "If I was going to tell you one thing, always keep the camera moving." And I thought that was interesting.
The Vessel was directed by one of Terry's sort of disciples, and I can definitely the viewer can see the massive influence that he's had on our director. So that's interesting that you've learned that, and just in terms of kind of coming back to Reagan in this film, what was your we talked about your preparation for the role, but what did you learn maybe through this process? Any insights into Reagan or Meese or those around him, or was there something that you came away from this experience with, other than being tired and having your hair dyed?
No, the funny thing is, some of the stuff that immediately comes to mind is some of the stuff I learned last night with John and you in the trailer. But I don't think it's for the podcast. Just some of the obscure works that you guys had read with respect to some of the debatable.
Well, I think you're talking about, in the old days of Hollywood, a lot of stuff went on. I was at lunch in Beverly Hills, and it was just so funny because I won't say who it was, but I was with two prominent people. And they were like, "Oh, my mother had sex with your dad in 1945, whatever it was." And I'm like, "This is so weird."
Yes.
But there was old Hollywood. People definitely, had a lot of intimate relationships back then. New Hollywood, kind of post Harvey Weinstein Hollywood, I think everybody is behaving themselves very well. But in the old days, there was no social media, and so we were talking about that last night, about how all these people knew each other in the biblical sense.
Yes, and it was easier to keep clandestine activities.
Yeah.
To keep them clandestine.
Yeah. I won't say who, but I work with an actor, older gentleman. If you look at my IMDb page, you'll figure it out. But I was just kind of shocked the way he treated his fans. I was like, man, you couldn't get away with that today in this era. And his fans were understanding because he was an older guy, but. I mean, you do something like that today, and 10 minutes later, it's on Twitter. So so and so did this to me, and whatever, or lawyers filing a lawsuit, whatever it might be. But in those days, I suppose if somebody was not treated right, and they threatened something, the studio would say, "We'll sue you, and you'll never eat lunch in this town again," right?
Yeah.
And they just shut up. But it doesn't work that way anymore. But so there have been some good things that have come with this. With what's going on, but that's what we were talking about. For the listener, we were talking last night about these salacious books that talk about the old days of Hollywood and what was going on, and it was like a fraternity or a big frat party going on for years and years and years.
Indeed, and some of what I learned last night, I had no idea. You guys, the in-depth research that you guys have done on all the characters and some of the other characters that.
Well, you have all these good-looking people coming from around the country and landing in one spot.
Yeah.
I mean, in some sense, you've experienced this too, in terms of you have run with a crowd. Right, of actors. You all know each other. You've auditioned together. Like, just drop a few names. Like, who was in your circle over these last 20 years?
It's funny because it's changed. Jimmy Caviezel was one of my groomsmen in our wedding. We had our rehearsal dinner at his house.
The star of The Passion of the Christ and so many great movies.
Yes.
What's the TV series he's been on?
The Person of Interest.
Person of Interest.
Yes. Yeah. Billy Zabka was also in my wedding, and of course, he's had the Karate Kid franchise kind of resurrected with Cobra Kai, and he's a producer on that. He was one of my ushers. Certainly, many of the guys that I worked with, I think Sean Penn I've worked with 3 times now. And, Sean recommended me for I Am Sam to play Laura Dern's husband, so I've always appreciated that. I think, but
I should name names and see who you haven't.
Oh yeah, no. We've been doing it so long. I'm trying to think.
All right, Jennifer Aniston.
I do not know Jennifer.
Oh, I finally found somebody that you haven't worked with or gone to an audition with.
I don't really know anything about her, but I have met Brad Pitt a few times.
You work with Brad. So so it's interesting because there's people. Sometimes people think all the Hollywood people know each other, which is not exactly true. But it's also, there are odd pairings of people that you just happen to have worked with or auditioned with and socialized with and things like that.
Yeah.
But yes, it's not like the old days because Will Wallace has been married to the same woman for 14 years, has 4 children. And has been behaving himself as far as I can tell in Hollywood, but no, we've had a lot of fun this week, and you did such a wonderful job playing Attorney General Ed Meese, and Just maybe as a parting shot, I'd love to just hear kind of what what Reagan the movie has meant, or what lessons Reagan teaches us. Maybe it's always interesting. I always enjoy asking that of people because people have very different answers. Is there anything that you come away with from the character, having read the script, immersed yourself in it, that you learned that we can benefit from?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is the patriotic attitude. I think and that's something that I feel like there's so many issues at hand now, and the particularly in our country, there's a great deal of conflict and hatred, and I think that I'm a man of faith, and I feel like if we come back to putting God in the center of our lives, we develop compassion and understanding. If we can listen to one another and understand that people have their beliefs and their sentiments for a reason. They've lived their own lives and they feel strongly about things. And I think that if we remember that all men are created equal, I think we can remember to try to love each other, and then I hope we can move back into being proud patriots, because I'm a proud patriot.
That's such a great point, because sometimes you'll hear the founding fathers were evil or racist or whatever, but I love what Martin Luther King, the way he portrayed it. He said the founders made a promissory note to the black community, to him, to Martin Luther King. When you said all men are created equal, you're basically laying down the gauntlet. And so King said, I've come here to cash a check. You gave me a promissory note. You gave my people a promissory note in 1776, whenever it was, and I'm here to cash the check. I love that idea.
I love that.
As opposed to saying you guys are hypocrites. To say, you guys made this pledge to us that we are equal, and I'm coming here to collect it. Yeah. And that was part of the I Have a Dream speech, that he talks about it being a promissory note.
Yeah. Well, and I think that Martin Luther King was somebody I admire a great deal, and I think we experienced a massive loss that I'm oftentimes, I feel like I'm reminded of that over and over again. And I had an interesting little debate with Spike Lee, and I'd gone to a little private screening in Santa Barbara of Black Klansman, and afterwards, and I had just seen the Green Book, and
I remember that, right? You talked about this.
I talked about this, and I was so moved by the Green Book. I really was, and I'd just seen Black Klansman, and I enjoyed the film, and at the end, they shown the conflict that was going on in North Carolina, and I didn't really understand why that was in the film, and I'm familiar with some of Mr. Lee's work, and so I just asked him. I said, Spike, I'm just curious. I just wonder, as we in this fight against racism, some of the product as filmmakers, some of the product that you put out there, I wonder if you were ever concerned that possibly you're actually in this fight potentially instilling hatred in the young black community.
What was his response?
Yeah, and I said, as opposed to, a film like Green Book, where I feel like it's opening our hearts and moved by that, and Spike got rather upset, and I don't know how much I should say on the podcast, and if he's listening, no, but he said, look, basically he said, look, I get it. He said, he did not like Green Book. He thought Green Book was a farce. He said,
Whitewashing.
He said he said specifically, "Are you kidding me? Are you gonna tell me that a black man needs a white man to teach him how to eat fried chicken? Are you kidding me?" And he said it with a little more hostility, and then he kept putting his hand on my shoulder and saying, "But it's all love, brother. It's all love." And then he went back and he said, "Look, I get it. There's two ways to telling a story." He said, "You can go, you can say the we can all put our hands together and sing 'We Are the World' and drink a Coca-Cola together." And he goes, "But that ain't my way." I hear him, and I hear where he's coming from, but I'm not necessarily convinced. I actually believe that the Martin Luther King way of preaching love. I mean, he's a spiritual man, a man of faith, a man who teaches forgiveness and compassion and moving forward. And if we learn to see the good within each other, I feel like we can move forward in that fight against racism. And I think that when we are rehashing the past, not that it should ever be forgotten, but rehashing it and re-emphasizing and throwing in what I think are potentially gratuitous scenes that create animosity, I feel like we find ourselves in it promotes and promulgates this dividing, this hatred within communities that we're experiencing right now. Who knows if I'll be right? Who knows in 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 30 or 100 years from now, if which way's the right path? But,
he died at 39. I just wonder. I wonder if he could have been president one day. I wonder if he could have run for president and died in 68, right? He could have. What if he ran in 76 or 80? Like the whole world would have been different. But imagine if he had been the first African American president.
Isn't that amazing? And I think he would have been a wonderful president. And he was 39.
He would have been an interesting president. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll never know. But such is history. But in 1980, he would have still been pretty young. I mean, people run for president until their 70s these days, right? 70s, almost 80.
Well, do you feel like preaching that way is not effective and moving, that it's too soft, it's not, that we're not moving forward with respect to finding equality?
Well, that's the buzz, right? People are now criticizing white people for saying, "Oh, you guys love Martin Luther King now, but you didn't love him back then." I mean, there's definitely, when my friends quote MLK on Facebook if they're white and they get reamed, for that. But I mean, I think he's grown with time, in our minds, right? He's a large figure for all of us, I think. And we appreciate him more every day because he was so wise, and he had his father. I forgot their name was something else, and his father was so inspired by Martin Luther when he traveled to Europe that he changed their family name, I think. So there's a lot of interesting history there. And of course, he wasn't a perfect man. Nobody is, but I think we owe him a great debt of gratitude. In fact, Reagan quoted one time, he said that Martin Luther King freed the white man because he taught us how to love, and that was an interesting observation too. So, but clearly there's a lot of tension going on these days, and we're in the middle of that and telling the story. But Will Wallace, thank you so much for being here and having such a great conversation with the audience and talking about who you are and what you do and what you did for this film. Thanks again.
Thank you, Mark. It was an absolute joy. I appreciate you and remembering me for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Will.
God bless.